Consider This with Carol Schrader is supported in part by Better Business Equipment and by Nebraskans for Public Television. Consider This with Carol Schrader, a news and information program recorded on the campus of the University of Nebraska at Omaha. From the Fireside Lounge in the Milo Bale Student Center, here is your host, Carol Schrader.
Hello and welcome to the beginning of the fourth year of Consider This here at UNO. Really happy to have a special guest here. John McKeel is superintendent of the largest school district in the state, and the largest school district of the state and every school district in the state are facing certain issues that we're going to talk about today, not the least of which is the teacher pay slash shortage slash, it's a domino effect of what happens when you have these kinds of problems. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you
very much. You bet.
Wanted to have you as my first, since you're school district number one, you know.
Bet. We appreciate it much.
I think that the thing on the front, we have lots of issues we could talk about, but the thing on the front burner is what they're going to consider. Obviously, the unicameralists come to grips with some realization that this is not something that's going to go away, and the longer they wait, the more problematic will be the teacher shortage. I noticed posted on your website there's still openings.
That's true.
Even after a month of school, month and a half of school, of openings that you have.
You bet. Carol, let me just indicate that what the Omaha Public Schools is facing is not unique, but because of the size, it's more pronounced, and that's simply an indication of things to come. We have the equivalent today in the Omaha Public Schools of a middle school staff being absent from our school district.
In terms of full and part-time staff
in
missing.
terms of full and part-time staff. And the bottom line is, unless we become very, very aggressive as a state and as a community, this issue is going to become even more pronounced.
Obviously, and do you ever, I don't know if you go to like the Omaha.com, the World Herald website, and you know, sometimes you say, oh, I'm not going to read all the comments people have because they're just, it's a way to just sort of vent. But then you kind of look at them to kind of see where people are at, and I think in their heart of hearts, a lot of people know that we need good teachers and they are key. But the other thing is, you know, we've tried to throw money at many problems in recent history, and is that going to solve it? I assume you think that their money is part of this equation.
Carol, let me comment, because I believe it is today, but I don't believe it always was. And this issue has been here for 10 years. What has complicated this is the devaluing of education generally, and the cynicism, the sarcasm, and the ridicule that took place beginning in 1984, when actually the commissioner in the state of Nebraska was party to drafting a document called The Nation at Risk, and it declared that there was a rising tide of mediocrity in America, and that the public schools were doing horrible things to kids. And
well, there was the secular humanism stuff and all that we still hear today.
And Carol, it started then, but it continued to perpetuate. Now, I believe that the original intent was to jumpstart public education, to say you become lackadaisical, there are issues that you need to address, but it served its purpose. And so the unjustified ridicule and cynicism toward education generally, I think, has compounded, and a general devaluing that has taken place. And so the bottom line is there are intrinsic rewards that attracted individuals to education that I think the external types of reimbursement we simply didn't pay any attention to. But what happened when you have a combination of a 45th ranking and you have a general devaluing of education generally, it's a terrible ingredient and formula that we're facing at this particular time. But the issue of throwing money at it, that's long past. If we don't step up and do something, we cannot compete simply as a state. 47% of our graduates go to states elsewhere. We used to recruit in 32 different states, and we simply are staying home. We can't compete. And so the issue is we can pretend that money isn't part of the solution, and I don't believe it's the only part. It's a small part. It's more important that we value as a community the contribution that educators are making.
Do you, I know there's two parts to a teacher shortage. One is recruiting the new teacher, keeping them in the state of Nebraska and getting them to at least teach somewhere here in the state. Another part is keeping experienced teachers. are these of equal footing in terms of problems, or is one higher than the other?
Well, Carol, I think that anytime you lose an experienced teacher to private sector, and I've had many, many conversations of individuals who say, I love what I'm doing, but look what I've been offered in terms of the economy of that. And so the bottom line is teachers are extremely well prepared. Their skills and their expertise can transfer to a number of locations, and the bottom line, when we lose an experienced teacher, we may replace with an individual, but certainly not the caliber, the expertise, the insights, and all the things that come with a long-term experience.
And then I understand that Omaha has a unique situation on many, many levels. Just the sheer numbers of students they're dealing with, the diversity, both not just racially and ethnically, but socioeconomically.
Yes.
But I understand they even have one other difference, is that their pension fund, the way it's set up, actually allows teachers sometimes to leave at a younger age and can actually teach in another school district. Doesn't work the other way around.
Well,
I mean, it's
first of
just
all,
a fluke because OPS had a teacher's retirement plan sooner or something.
Sure. Carol, first of all, the retirement plan is separate, but the benefits basically are the same, that the state has a rule of 85, and the Omaha Public Schools happens to have a rule of 85. And so what you described is not unique to the Omaha Public Schools, that an individual can retire from a surrounding suburban school district and come to work in the Omaha Public Schools, receiving retirement from the state. And what you've described is right. The Omaha Public School teacher can retire and go to any number of school districts in the state or in another state, absolutely.
And in some of those districts, get a higher pay.
Oh, yes. Yes,
So,
that's right.
so I mean, I'm moving kind of in importance, and I mean, this higher pay issue, depending on, I mean, you could teach in Shelton, Nebraska, and that has a whole different
Sure.
issue for you because your property tax base is even more problematic and whatever. But the pay just on many levels, depending on where you are and who you're competing
You
with,
bet.
is a problem. I mean, District 66 has, bumped their teachers up, and they were already higher than OPS, as I understand.
Carol, what's happening around the country, and we just need to be conscious of it, aware of it, and talk about it. And if we agree as a community that that's okay, then we can proceed. But what we have is a phenomena that was actually addressed by the Lincoln Star a month ago, and it used Philadelphia as an example. An art teacher in the city school, given the years of experience, given the degree level, was making $35,000. If that teacher moved to a suburban Philadelphia school district, they would be making $60,000. And so we have
So we don't have it quite as bad, but
but the concept's the same, and that is if we don't nurture and if we don't safeguard city schools, there's an abandonment that takes place. And we've watched it, we've witnessed it all around the country. Any large city is a consequence, I think, that what happens when there is an abandoning going on. It begins with teacher shortage. It moves to a pronounced difference in teacher pay between a surrounding suburb and a city school. It goes then to the funding formula. It goes to the uniquenesses of individuals within a city school are much different and much more pronounced. And if we don't recognize that as a community and if we're not proactive about that, we see and witness what's happening around the country in terms of large urban school districts.
do you feel confident that the unicameral will come up with some solution? I mean, they're looking at an increase in the sales tax. And do you feel confident it will not be held against you in the cap that has been imposed?
Carol, yes, I am optimistic. I believe that our elected officials, I believe our politicians know the importance of education on a statewide basis. I believe that they're struggling with the issue that there are 600 school districts in the state of Nebraska, and just that very structure carries with it a cost factor. And if we value that, we need to continue to invest in it. If not, we need to engage in some legitimate discussion about a redesign of the governance issue of public schools in the state. And the bottom line is, I am hopeful. I do believe that our state, our communities will not allow what is currently happening to continue, that there will be a proactive. And if I might share for just a moment, we did that as a community when it was perceived that there was an engineering shortage. We have built a world premiere campus on 72nd Pacific to ensure that never again will Nebraska be faced with an information technology shortage, an engineering shortage, and we're competing on a worldwide basis. I believe the same thing will happen with respect to teacher education and teaching our youngsters, that we'll step forward, we'll solve this problem, and it will take an investment of resources, but it will also take a recognition and a valuing of the process of education.
several years ago, and I'm sure you recall this, when Vard Johnson was very involved with the Education Committee, they did a thing called the Syracuse Study. And the University of Syracuse had experience in this field, said that we had a higher than average number of administrators. Now that was before some of the school consolidation took place. But some legislators still say that they are going to be looking more carefully at that. Now, I pose a question, and it's not aimed at you, but do we need to reevaluate, administrators, or maybe how our districts, you know, we still have, what, 10 districts in the metro area?
In Douglas County, there are 8.
8?
And so all of the metro area beyond the county, there are a good dozen.
And then we have the complexity, the fact that the Omaha School District, because it has, as I mentioned, that very diverse kind of background, that maybe there are we have a lot of special programs that have to be offered in larger numbers. You know, is administration, are we top heavy in administration? A in OPS and B in the state?
Yeah, absolutely not on both counts, Carol. And again, it's a myth that's being perpetuated in terms, and I believe very, very misguided. The bottom line is I would put any school districts, and I'll speak for the Omaha Public School, I'll put the administrative staff profile against any corporation, any private sector, and simply indicate that it's a wonder that the 74 certificated administrators and supervisors are doing a tremendous job for young people. But often that criticism starts in the urban school, that perpetuation of a myth that there's administrative bloat, and it simply isn't the case. But it's one thing for me to sit here and to say that. It's quite another for an individual to come in. And let me just share with the viewers that sometimes when a person drives by 3215 Cummings Street and sees the cars, you wonder, well look, it reaffirms.
Those are all administrators.
That's right.
Yes, they're
but
all.
Carol, we're engaged in alternative revenue generating. We lease the parking to Creighton University, so dental and medical students, in addition to the fact that there are 800 students attending the Career Center. So our administrative facility serves as a career center for 800 students.
Well, I'm happy to give you the opportunity to help dispel that myth.
Thank you. And I thought the other way would be to paint a big blue jay on the parking lot or something to serve as kind of a reminder. But we are not, and no matter what administrator says, that perception is going to exist. But I do want to address the issue in the context of the governance. There are more superintendents, there are more members of the Board of Education in the state of Nebraska than there are mathematics and science teachers combined. And that goes to the priority that Nebraska has placed on local control, that every community, in the case of Douglas County, it's important that 8 communities have their own school district, their own governance, their own superintendent. And if that's the decision, then so be it, but don't single out the only urban school district, the largest school district, to lay claim then that there is administrative concern. By design, we've designed it that way, that the numbers are out of sync, actually, in terms of mathematics and science teachers, but it's by design.
I mean, I remember, was it Senator Dave Stammer years ago wanted to, I think he was trying to make a point that no one was willing to give up their school districts, but he introduced a bill that, District 66 would no longer exist as we know it, and that we would basically consolidate within Douglas County. And I think there had been other efforts, or at least flags flown up the pole to see if they'd fly. And of course, no one wants to. And in small towns or smaller or less populated counties, that is part of their economic base. They have so few well-paying jobs, and I don't mean skyrocketing paying jobs. I just mean what are considered, that I mean even losing 1 or 2 is hurtful to a community.
It becomes the lifeblood of an organization, the activities, the youth, the vibrancy that's brought into a community. But Carol, let me address this issue. It's important that we recognize local control and the value that comes from that, and independent school districts and local school districts, but not at the expense. We need to look at the 94,000 children in Douglas County and to say in our heart of hearts, do we really believe that it's okay for some of the children to have $7,000 behind their education, for some of the children to have $6,500 behind their education, but for 45,000 youngsters to have below the state average spent on their education? And I'm indicating as often as I possibly can that that's the first step in the demise.
You're talking about OPS.
I'm talking about the Omaha Public Schools has less than the state average in per pupil expenditure. And I'm talking about the fact that in all of the school districts in Douglas County, there's a different dollar amount depending on where a youngster happens to live, spent on a child's education. And we need to talk candidly about that and to indicate that if we're going to be measured on a statewide basis, if our youngsters are going to compete on an international basis, we ought to have a finance formula that provides the same educational opportunities on an equitable basis. And currently in the metropolitan area that doesn't take place, and in the state of Nebraska that doesn't take place, and it must.
I just talked to a candidate for state legislature, an incumbent, Dan Lynch, a long-term, he supports the Omaha Public Schools. He's in the Omaha Public School District. I said, one of the questions posed by some of his constituents for both candidates in the District 13 race was, do you feel that the state aid to education formula works against the districts in our area, specifically in your district, Dan and Lowen Cruz, who's running OPS? And Dan said, who's been involved with politics for a long time down there, 16 years, said, no, I don't think there's inherently anything wrong. And I said there's fine-tuning that we need to do, but are you saying out and out that and we've had so many news stories on this, I'm confused as to where OPS stands. Do you feel that the state aid formula is unfair, or does it have to do with other nuances of state aid to education?
Carol, I would agree with Senator Lynch that there's fine-tuning, there's adjustment, and it's something that takes periodic review as the needs change from year to year, as the dynamics of the community changes from year to year. But I would indicate to you that the same finance formula has gotten us to the point that we're at, and that is a tremendous inequity in the educational opportunities that are afforded youngsters. And let's just use Douglas County and keep the conversation limited to our own county, but the same concept would apply throughout the state. That the finance formula has resulted in the inequitable spending of dollars depending upon where a student happens to live. So fine-tuning is indeed in order, and we need to step back and say, is that finance formula meeting the current contemporary needs of Nebraska? And if we conclude yes, then we need to remedy this inequity that has resulted over a period of time.
All right, I guess the question is, when taxpayers in Omaha look at OPS, they say, well, OPS has needed some things in the past. We passed a very large bond issue to help with this student reassignment. In other words, to get rid of, just to use it in common terms, rid of the busing that we had, the forced busing on the grade school level, and to accomplish a couple of things, both to make sure that we have somewhat of a diverse population in all our schools, and B, to really work on those constituencies, African American, some of the minority groups, some of the poor groups, whose need some help bolstering in their schools because they were either old schools, maybe we needed to bolster the experience level of the teachers there. I mean, pretty myriad of things we've been talking about the last 3 years in Omaha. And then you raise the school district budget. Now, people who have been real patient and said, yes, we have to give our support to our schools, are wondering, if the state doesn't come through, what next? It's going to keep coming out of my pocket.
Sure. Carol, let me address a couple of things. Number one, the $254 million bond issue did one thing, and that is it addressed the building needs in the Omaha Public Schools. And I will maintain that there was an abandonment to allow the equivalent of 16 school buildings to exist in the Omaha Public Schools by way of 25 by 30 clapboard trailers. We used to call them portables. Or temporaries. 275 of those is the equivalent of 16 elementary schools. To allow that to occur was inequitable, and it was not right. The bottom line is no other school district in Douglas County even approached that, and yet when it came to city school children, it was okayed. No other school district would allow a playground to be covered with portables where a youngster couldn't go out and kick a soccer ball, couldn't run around at recess. This is the only school district that's still talking about heat days. We're saying on a local basis, let's compare scores, and yet we're still struggling with the fact that it's unbearable in our school buildings in terms of the climate.
So you're saying that we can't even, we're not even comparing scores equally in bricks and mortar.
Absolutely.
So Carol, how can you talk about the other stuff? You know, the basic place you learn.
Absolutely. And so as we take a look, and let's, again, looking at Douglas County, we need to ensure it shouldn't be by happenstance or chance or geography a facility that a youngster has the opportunity. Every school building ought to be able to plug in a computer and access the internet. Every school building ought to have a facility where a youngster can run and play and jump and learn. And that wasn't true in our city. And so the $254 million bond issue was to address pre-World War II buildings, period. And that represented a good start. But I maintain it was a result of over a course of a period of time that didn't take place, and we're playing catch-up. The issue, and it was totally outside and in keeping with the legislature demanded. We're going to eliminate your site and building fund so you can no longer access that, and you need to go to your public. And the Omaha Public School did exactly what the state legislature...
And the people passed it.
And the people passed it.
Probably a margin that was a little surprising even.
Well, and the bottom line is testimony, and that same type of action is what gives me hope and optimism that our state is going to value the importance of education, and they will step up. But the bottom line is, Carol, you're right. The property tax has become the primary focus, and that isn't true in other states around this country. There are several revenue-generating sources that are made available. In our state, we've eliminated all of those over the course of the year, and it's fallen on the property tax, and that property tax is being equated then to support for schools. And that's a challenge that we need to address on a statewide basis.
What route do you feel... You've talked to a lot of taxpayers over the years and all the roles you've had moving up to this superintendent's office. Since we've eliminated so many things, and you are a taxpayer, what form is more palatable? I mean, we pay for it no matter whether it's state, and Omaha pays in a huge amount of money to the state. I'm not saying putting down any other part, but we,
you bet.
You know, we pay in sales taxes, we pay in income taxes. Our homes and property have borne the brunt of the educational. I mean, what's palatable to us?
And Carol, that's something that I believe there must be conversation about to ask that question. Other communities have stepped forward. It isn't appropriate for one superintendent to make a recommendation or advance that.
I guess that was a poorly phrased question. Which ones are on the table at this point besides the sales tax?
Income tax, sales tax. The bottom line is there are, just as the city does, there are fines and fees and licensing and all sorts of things that are available. But again, I believe it's a combination. I believe that we can learn from other cities. I believe that we can learn from other efforts that have taken place. Carol, in the state of Nebraska, I just visited a school district where birth to age 5 programs are offered young people. We know as a state, I listened to our legislatures address this issue of early childhood education. We know the importance, and yet it's going to take dollars. And I can indicate to you that other states, just like Nebraska, with the sparsity issues, the economy issues that we're facing as a state, have reprioritized and have funded programs for children. They've invested in youth, and I maintain with legitimate dialogue, insightful discussion, that we'll come up with a palatable formula.
Whether or not you believe that we should be putting a ton of money in teacher salaries and other educational efforts, or you don't, we know something is going to happen. Some people have said, you know, the economy is pretty good right now. It could go south, or at least be cyclical.
Sure.
That if we don't do it now, not just for the sake of keeping those teachers and all the right reasons, that we ought to maybe do it for the wrong reason, which is if we don't do it now and you think it's painful, and I'm not trying to use a scare tactic, but I mean, I guess personally it's like you take care of stuff when you know you got a little pad.
And Carol, that's my sentiment, and what we're seeing happen, we're a business just like any other enterprise, and we're paying property insurance, we're paying fuel costs, we're paying transportation and insurance premiums. Every aspect of doing business has gone up double digit, and yet we're sitting here with a 2.5% expenditure limit, 3.5% if a supermajority of the board vote, and the bottom line is we've come against that proverbial wall. We can no longer fund public education, the reading, writing, and arithmetic side of it, because of the types of business expenses that we're seeing.
But wait a minute, inflation's been so low, how can your expenses be going up?
And I would ask that question at the gas pump, I'd ask that question at the petroleum tank, I'd ask that question, here we are in the seat of the insurance industry in our nation, and our property insurance has gone up 29%. I would ask that in terms of the individuals who are picking up lunch money from youngsters from school to school, 77% increase. The cost of maintaining our computer, 30% in terms of the maintenance fee.
So who's keeping all these figures and figuring out this inflation then?
And I'll tell you, it's exactly right. And so the bottom line is, I maintain we are experiencing a boom economy, the likes of which we've never experienced in this nation, and yet we're putting an economic stranglehold on public education at 2.5%. And the bottom line is we find ourselves faced, once we pay the fuel bills, once we pay the subcontracting costs, it leaves then a monumental task of providing the reading, the writing, the arithmetic.
You know, if someone's watching, they're going to probably chastise me, saying, you make it sound like you're a cheerleader for this. And I guess I feel that some raise in all this is inevitable and certainly prudent. So I mean, I guess in that sense I'm more empathetic maybe than as a journalist I should be. But there still are hard questions in that we cannot continue forever to, because we have sales tax, income tax, and property tax in Nebraska. We're not Florida, we don't have tourism. We don't have some other things. We're still going to be limited. And if we keep increasing, even if it's for the right reasons, the percentage, we're going to be real messed up at the end of this. If we, have some cyclical recession or more inflation, I mean, something's going to hurt more than schools are right now.
And first of all, I applaud your efforts for being a cheerleader. We need more cheerleaders for public education.
Well, I don't know if I should be.
In Nebraska.
But you know what I'm saying? I mean, if that budget category goes up, something else, if it doesn't go down now, it'll have to go down in the future when things get tighter, because you don't give teachers cuts in salaries.
Sure. And let me continue, Carol, in terms of your cheerleading, because we are the only state in the nation that did not list education as a priority. The only state of the state message delivered in 50 states, Nebraska didn't include education.
Maybe that's why Governor Johans has such high numbers in the polls. I don't know.
And all I would indicate to you is that's fine, but as a state we've got to make a very, very difficult decision. Where are we going to invest? Other states have already made that decision. Other states have already addressed consolidation issues. Other states have already, and if we still need to debate whether or not to fund, the bottom line is we can only go so much further, and we rank 50th. And I can indicate to you that we can use Mississippi as a model. They ranked 50th for years. We used to be able to recruit in Mississippi, but after so long, your infrastructure deteriorates. And the bottom line is it will be the demise of public education. We are sitting complacent right now. Test scores are high. Our youngsters are accessing colleges. The bottom line is this urgency that exists currently isn't being realized and isn't being felt because we're doing a good job in the good life state. But the bottom line is if we don't invest, if we don't recognize our ranking and recognize that we need to nurture that infrastructure of education, we're in for some tough times ahead.
We have 30 seconds.
Sure.
Are you glad you stayed in Omaha?
Oh,
We
Carol.
almost, now come on. Was it a game that you played?
No, Carol, the bottom line is it's a situation that the time, the place, the circumstances, and all the dynamics, it would be difficult to summarize in 30 seconds.
Right.
But the answer to your question
Are you glad you
is
stayed?
an emphatic yes. Absolutely.
Well, I'm certainly glad you came today to be with us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Carol, I appreciate it.
OPS Superintendent of Schools, John McKeel.
Thanks, Carol.
Thank you for joining us this week on Consider This.
Consider This with Carol Schrader is supported in part by Better Business Equipment and by Nebraskans for Public Television.